AITA for telling my sister I don't blame her son for not forgiving her? My husband and I have had custody of my nephew Leo, 13, who is the son of my sister Helen. For context, Leo's dad died when Leo was 2 and when he was 4 Helen got together with Joe. I always hated Joe. He was just an evil person. Rude, ignorant, belligerent, controlling, and that was just in public. Helen never said it but I knew he was awful to her at home. She rebuffed me at every turn and eventually limited contact. For 3 years I barely saw Helen and Leo. One day, my husband received a call from Leo out of the blue. He'd run away from home and was distraught. Long story short, I picked Leo up with Helen's knowledge and he told me and my fiancé about the hell that he'd been living in. Joe was physically, verbally, and mentally abusive to his own kids, Helen and Leo. I was devastated by what I heard. Things in that house were bad, and according to Leo, Helen wasn't doing much to stop it. I was livid that Helen could let her own child live like that. I had given her grace for the position she was in, but once it's your child, that has to be more important. My fiancé wanted to confront Joe, but ultimately I didn't see the point. I called Helen and said that I would be getting the police involved unless she let us have custody of Leo. I was well aware that Joe could not afford a visit from police after prior issues. She agreed. For the next 3 years, Leo barely spoke to Helen. She would reach out on the rare occasion she was away from Joe, but Leo never seemed excited to hear from her. My husband and I did our best to give him the best life possible, and I hope we've done right by him. He's such a good kid, smart, funny, a total weirdo, affectionately, and very popular. He doesn't have a bad word to say about anyone, except Helen and Joe. A year ago, Joe got arrested and he is now serving prison time. Helen has left him, but still has custody of his kids. She has been trying to repair things with Leo, but it's not working. We're paying for family therapy for both, but Leo won't speak during it at all. He's also back in therapy individually, but it's interfering with his sports schedule, which is making him really resentful that he has to go. Helen has recently started blaming me and my husband for Leo's unwillingness to make up with her. I've tried my best to stay neutral and not to engage with the cruel things she says to me because they're untrue and she's been through enough. She shouldn't have to feel like she's fighting on all fronts. But earlier this week, after another session of therapy, Helen cornered me in the parking lot and said it went nowhere again, and she is getting really depressed by the lack of engagement from Leo. She said she takes time away from her other kids to mend this relationship and Leo won't even speak to her or acknowledge how sorry she is that she failed as his mother. She then called him selfish. And I lost it. Because how dare she call him selfish when his own mother let him be abused and abandoned him for years. He had to move towns, schools, build a whole life for himself without the support of the only parent he had left because of her selfishness. I told Helen all this and then said, while I will always hope that Leo wants a relationship with her because she's his mother, I don't blame him for not forgiving her. Helen broke down sobbing and ran to her car, and that was the last I've heard of her since. Normally she calls me every other day to talk to Leo, but this week she hasn't. She's just called him but he never picks up. I'm wondering if I went too far. I want to facilitate a relationship between her and Leo, not to be a point of conflict. There's nothing I want more than for Leo to have a good relationship with the only parent he has. But I also don't feel like she understands the gravity of what her behavior did to her son, and maybe she needed to hear that not everyone thinks she's done enough, that everything should be easy from here. She's looking for maturity from a 13-year-old that she herself hasn't shown. So did I go too far?